The Secret of the Indian by Lynne Reid Banks, Chapter 14, A Strange Yellow Sky. Doc Brandt put his old-fashioned stethoscope back in his bag in silence. Patrick, peeping through the frill of cotton lace around the top of Ruby Lou's dress, saw Boone lying on her bed on a bright-colored patchwork quilt. At least he wasn't lying out in the hot desert sand anymore. Though it had not been so hot by the time they had finally found him, it had been getting dark, and Patrick had been scared they'd never find him at all. The horse had been pretty useless. It became clear quite early on that it hadn't a clue where it had left Boone, but Ruby Lou had been absolutely determined to find him. Luckily, Tickle's many and varied talents included amateur tracking. With his help, they had finally found the place where the horse's tracks had rejoined the main trail into town. This had been made possible by the fact that the horse was wearing some very unusual horseshoes. "Like something from a bygone age," Tick had remarked. After that, it had just been a matter of following them, and when they lost them on some hard ground, Patrick had noticed, silhouetted against the magnificent desert sunset, a tall cactus sticking up on the horizon that he recognized soon after Ruby Lou and Tickle were heaving Boone's unconscious body onto the back of Tick's wagon. "Sure must have had a crack on the head or something," squeaked Tick. "He's out colder than last week's beans." Doc Brandt said nothing about last week's beans. He was a man of few words. He just packed his stethoscope away and prepared to leave. "Well, Doc?" cried Ruby Lou anxiously. The old man shook his head. "Can't find nothing wrong with him. Head's okay. Ain't got fever. Ain't been shot. Nothing but a bit of bruising on the ribs. Maybe from when he fell off the horse. Seems like he plumb don't favor waking up." "God pardon sin, Doc. Maybe he's drunk," asked Tickle piously. "Look who's talking," muttered Ruby. The doctor shook his head. "No liquor on his breath. Can't explain it. Just better leave him lay." When he'd gone, Tickle said he'd mosey over to the saloon to tickle the ivories for a while to soothe his nerves. "You be okay here alone, Ruby?" "I ain't alone," she replied promptly, and patted her bosom. "Pat and me'll keep each other company and decide what to do about Billy here." Tickle suddenly drew himself up to his full height of 5 feet and intoned, in an unexpectedly deep, commanding voice, "Don't you go believing everything you see. There's a lot of devil's work in this world. I know it, on account of I ain't free of sin myself." And he cast his eyes to heaven before closing the door. "Do you hear that? There's a bit of a preacher left in him, even though he ain't held a service since the Deadeye gang went through and burned the church down in '81. That's how he learnt tracking, trying to chase 'em." As she spoke, Ruby lifted Patrick out between finger and thumb and set him on the table. It was covered with a rich, and from Patrick's point of view, colossal assortment of feminine fancies. A tortoise-shell-backed hairbrush, elaborate bottles of perfume, a number of sepia-tinted photos in heavily worked silver frames, an ivory comb. Patrick could have easily sunk and suffocated in the scented powder, in a glass-cut bowl, and a mirror in its bright enamel frame above which he could just see his head was the size of a reflecting skyscraper. The copper hairpins scattered about were as tall as himself. "Okay, Pat, let's hear from you," said Ruby Lou. "Who, me?" said Patrick, startled. Don't string me no line now. You know what's up with my pal Billy Boone, don't you?" It was not a question. Her blue eyes were narrowed as she looked at him, though her wide red mouth was smiling knowingly. Patrick sat down cross-legged on a white swan-down powder puff. "Yes, I do, as a matter of fact, but you won't believe me if I tell you." "Try me," Patrick told her. "Boone's left his body behind and gone into the future." There was a pause while she took this in. "Supposing I say I believe you, and I just might, because he told me some such tale himself once, will he come back?" "Yes, but only if my friend Omri turns the key at the other end." "Into the future, huh? Is that where you come from?" "Yes." "What year?" she asked, as if this would catch him out. Patrick told her. She straightened up. "Holy snakes! That's almost exactly 100 years from now." She walked about the room a bit. Patrick watched her. Of course, she was rather gaudily dressed, and he supposed she was a lady in name only, so to speak. But when she was at the far side of the room, so he could see all of her, it was obvious that she was very pretty. She was clever, too. Cleverer than all those crazy men in the bar who had started shooting and fighting at the sight of him. And she was brave and tough. The way she'd ridden that horse, the way she'd stuck to the search, the way she'd lifted Boone's big body onto the tail of the wagon. Patrick admired her. And she liked Boone. She liked him a lot. Patrick wondered if he liked her. She stopped pacing. "What's it like in the future?" "It's okay. We've got a lot of gadgets and stuff for making life easier. You get about in cars, that's like horseless carriages, very fast. And we've got flying machines. We've got moving photographs that you can have in your home to entertain you. And doctors have found out how to cure lots of diseases so people live longer." "Gee, sounds great. Any drawbacks?" She was clever. "Well, yes, there are too many people, really. They make a lot of mess, and plenty of them are still poor and starving. There's still crime, and there are lots of wars. Not just with guns and bows and arrows and stuff. There are weapons now, well, anyway, they're much scarier. They could blow up the whole world." Ruby Lou strolled back to him and sat down. She put her elbow on the table near him. Her arm was like a great white marble pillar, and rested her chin on her hand. She fixed her blue eyes on him. "That's quite a drawback, all right. I guess I'll stick around here till my time's up. It gets rough at times, but at least we're too civilized to kill more than one or two at once. Say, they ain't going to shoot any of them big ones off while Billy's there, are they?" "I don't suppose so." "They better not blow up my Billy," she said, and the way she said it showed Patrick that she didn't just like Boone. And we'll pause there.